you love about TruthJuice gatherings is you don't see everybody just standing around propping up the bar. They're all coming to listen to the people talking. We've got Gary Evans coming up next, who I first encountered, what must be a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
Talking about evidence for Atlantis.
That's true.
And the tent was absolutely bulging by the time he'd finished, and it was a big tent. But here today he's going to talk about moving into the path of intuition, using the tools of ancient ritual.
That's right.
So
that's kind of the latest work.
Gary Evans.
Thank you.
Take it away, sir.
Yeah, that was 2010. Over the Moon Now, what was it called?
Out of the Ordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was before I'd visited a lot of these sites and done 5 trips to Egypt. And so my role as the day job is the agent to lots of these authors, moving around the world, helping to organise conferences up to kind of 500, 600, 700 people on alternative topics. I'm kind of working behind the scenes on tours and conferences, engaging with the alternative media, and so it is a very different picture, I would say, on the inside to the perception I had looking at things on the internet. Completely different. So I've tried to really get into what's relevant for my development. I want to progress, make progress, increase my awareness of the world and the kind of the problems, and what positive contribution can I make. Hopefully one of those today would be to share some of those things I think have been helping me. Probably some of the things certain people will know and other things some of you will know, but hopefully some of these techniques will give you new tools to think about or use for your own development. And so where I've really got to is the understanding of our modern rational mind, the mind that we're educated to use, that we use for computers, we use at work, and the kind of intuitive mind that our ancestors were working with, where we connect to something greater, whether you want to call that the universe or the kind of God mind, the collective unconscious. And I think that's the space that some of the geniuses that we've got in our history books have been tapping into, where there's this sort of deep truth, because there are certain laws that govern the universe and the world, and our science is still trying to catch up with an understanding of the whole. I see us really as children, because if we look at the entirety of how big we know the universe is, and then there's planet Earth and we've made it to the moon, I mean, we've hardly covered, haven't even covered 1% of what's out there. So can you imagine how evolved as a species we would be if we'd explored all of those planets and solar systems out there? I mean, there's so much for us to know, so we're barely babies in the grand scheme of things. And it does, time in Egypt has given me a kind of perspective, I would say, on my role in that scheme. And one of the things, the kind of epiphanies I had in the Great Pyramid was that if people that have made it to an event like this, we've done well, because despite all of the distractions of the modern world, computers, the TV, what's being beamed at us on the news and the mainstream channels, we've managed to keep our minds open to other possibilities, that there are things that our scientists don't understand. And so this epiphany was, well, you've done well. You've understood that self-development is important and that you can progress on the material world. But Gary, don't get too carried away. And then it kind of showed me this ladder going off into eternity, and it was like the spiritual progress ladder, you could call it. And then there was me at the bottom of the ladder and the first rung of the ladder, and I basically had my foot on it. So it's like, you've done well, you've made it onto the ladder, that's the fundamental important thing. But don't think you're anything particularly special, because your potential is beyond your perception. So much more to learn than I've learned to date. Hopefully I've learned something worth sharing. And how my personal path started, well, I went from Gary, who was in IT recruitment, to Gary, kind of the conference and tour organiser, was by working with intentions. And for quite a while I was kind of sending out this intention, I wanted to help others and make a positive contribution to the world. And also I sent out this intention that if there are souls or people that I can help, then please send them towards me, and I will do my best that I can. And at the time I thought that would just be a few friends in my sort of sphere of influence, but as it's turned out, the interviews and things that I arrange. I mean, I've done a lot with Lucy, that's talking in the other tent now. Maria, I also helped spread her work. So these kind of hidden gems that really have seeds of truth or something that's helped me, I now promote their messages to the world because I think they have valuable contributions to make. And I deal with like Coast to Coast AM in the States, which is certainly the world, Western world's biggest alternative radio show, 3 million listeners a week. So the work I'm doing is starting to sort of touch up to tens of millions, and that's without covering the History Channel's Ancient Aliens show, which they reckon they've got 100 million people watching it. But it's not the scope of the people that you inspire, it's just that you're trying to do your bit. So what I've been following, can anyone actually read that at the back? Is it just dark, the screen back there? Otherwise I'll have to read it out. So these are some of the things that I've been using and would certainly encourage other people to look at if they're not already. So yoga, union, the mind and the body. I mean, you can't intellectually explain the total benefits of yoga as a system because it just helps your development, brings inner peace and stillness, and this sort of trickles down into your personal life at work, your interactions with others, sort of growing empathy, connection to the world and animals. I mean, so many things. But I'm happy to talk to people about yoga because it is important the type of yoga that you go to. Because a lot of gyms and things are just kind of focusing on the physical side, but the real purpose is for deep relaxation, which is how we enter to number 2 here, meditation. And I've kind of termed it allows me to connect into the stillness. And there's certainly many parallels of the deep meditative state to what we do at night when we're sleeping. That gives us a chance to kind of reintegrate and put things to bed from yesterday, so we're not constantly fussing over them the next day, unless it's something really traumatic, in which it keeps coming up. But this sort of deep relaxation definitely settles us down in the body, and it's a good place to recharge. So if you can be conscious when you connect to the stillness rather than unconscious and asleep, it has amazing benefits, and also expansion, I would say, helps us expand. Tai Chi and Qi Gong. I mean, who does any of these practices here? Yoga, Tai Chi. Exactly. I mean, that's what I would expect some of us to have been already practicing with them. And similar benefits, moving energy in the body, which is something I was talking about in relation to ancient sites. These practices help us to tune in to sort of subtle changes and be kind of aware of our state of mind, and sort of invaluable. And mantras, I work a lot with Tibetan mantras, the kind of recitation of these different sounds, and we'll see at the end perhaps if we can do some toning together, because it could be an interesting experiment if we can use the power of group sound here. We can raise the vibration of this tent, that's the plan. So that's one side of it. And then nutrition, of course. I was talking about the quality of water in my talk, so if we can actually charge our own water, and there's various ways of doing that, but I just wanted to make people aware that this is something we can do, and that certainly helps our awareness. Organic food, yeah, now animal welfare, animal cruelty is a big problem, and just the kind of unconscious treatment of animals, not respecting them as sentient creatures. Green juice, I'm a huge fan of green juice. I had mine today, I made a batch of it. You can't actually see, but that was my preparation. I've sort of taken it to extremes, so I normally have about 30 different ingredients now. But one of the key things that I like about green juice is stinging nettles, and I think I'm addicted to stinging nettles. Because the way that they act, they're like a leech plant, so they suck up the minerals from the soil. That's one of the things that they do. And my intuition guided me that compound that stings us actually helps to open up the third eye, or kind of attunes us to our psychic abilities. And I was talking to a lady, she was called Herbal Emma, and she teaches foraging. And she said, well, it's quite profound really, because we've got stinging nettles everywhere. I mean, they're very easy for us to find, and it's not just England. I mean, worldwide they're pretty easy to find, and it's like it's something right under our nose. So the Great Mother or Gaia is growing stinging nettles abundantly because they do help humans, and there's a lot of us, so there's a lot of stinging nettles. But most people just say, stinging nettles, weed. So it's like what we really need, we're just throwing it away, and that's quite a good analogy for a lot of the things that people do. We might just dismiss something because for some reason it doesn't fit with our understanding now. So my normal advice is don't dismiss something out of hand unless it's something somebody's recommending that's really offensive. But if you feel drawn to something, give it a try, and then make your mind up through learning that way. And that's definitely how I think I'm helping myself. And that's so earthing, bare feet on the earth. And I'm just in the process of writing an article about how to visit ancient sites, and kind of giving these tools in a bit of a deeper way to the guests on our tours, and just to bring it into more public awareness. And grounding is something that's kind of growing in popularity at the moment. There's a good documentary coming out called Grounding, based in a town in Alaska. This chap there suddenly got into grounding, and he was taking it to further extremes than I am. He had sort of snow around his house, and it was like one of those wooden houses on stilts, and he was going underneath the house and grounding in that way, and kind of covering himself completely in soil. But the main purpose of it is we get this kind of electrical charge in our systems, and if we're cut off from beautiful grass like that, the charge in our body is not, it kind of, I guess, gets worse and worse, and stops us from clarity of thought. So it's very healthy to ground ourselves to the planet, and also there's this kind of interchange of perhaps sort of different electrons, free radicals and things, so it can be amazing for health benefits. And in this particular documentary, there was a guy that was in a wheelchair for sort of 25 years, and they started to get him to ground, and he did get the feeling coming back into his legs, and it showed him starting to walk. And I think the most illuminating thing that they did is there's a lot of doctors involved in this research, and they had a slide of blood under the microscope, and then they had another slide of blood under the microscope, which they then connected the grounding wire to. I'm not quite sure how they did it. So you could see the blood on the first slide hardly moving at all, and as soon as they connected the grounding wire to the second slide, all of a sudden it starts to move at this sort of increased pace. So by grounding our bodies, this is kind of demonstrating to me that it is lowering our blood pressure, which is a big problem certainly in the Western world. We're all very stressed and kind of highly strung, so it can help lower your blood pressure and reduce stress. And again, after about 2 or 3 days of being disconnected now, it's almost like my feet want to be connected to the planet. And then when we're using like Tai Chi and becoming aware of the energy movement in our bodies, when you get your feet on the ground, you start to feel the interaction, and it just feels good. I think that's the main test. It makes me feel happy being connected. So I would encourage everyone to do so, and of course beaches are a great place to do that. And so what are we really talking about in terms of spiritual development is raising our vibration, because I think it's quite a common term. We hear that term, well, let's raise our vibration and be better people. But how do you go about raising your vibration? So these were just a few of the things, and as I mentioned in my lecture, these are subtle things, so very subtle effects, but when you put them together you get quite a profound impact, which is why I wanted the Palo Santo, and I kind of got the essences and things. Epsom salts is another one, the magnesium sulfate my yoga teacher recommends, because the body has difficulty assimilating magnesium from our food, but you can absorb it through the skin, so it's very relaxing. I think it's probably normally recommended like if you've got an achy muscle or something, but it also kind of centres you and settles you. And if you suffer from bad cramps, then Epsom salts will be a good friend for you. It really has. I used to have a lot of cramps, and now they've gone. but if it starts to come back, if I haven't had a good soak in a bath of Epsom salts, or my cramps coming back, I know that I need to have a bath, and that will get rid of them again. And I have a client in Glastonbury. She deals in colour therapy. I mean, getting natural fibres isn't particularly easy for us. That's still an area that I need to improve on. I've made some movement in that direction, but the colour of our clothing, what we wear, impacts how we feel. Darker colours kind of lowers the vibration. I've gone with my green heart chakra colour today. So when I'm hosting the tours, I have the kind of chakra coloured t-shirt range, and they normally spot me easily then in the desert if I've got bright colours on. And it's just kind of represents how I'm feeling when I go into the Great Pyramid, a green or a purple. Just setting the intention for heart expansion or kind of expanding my awareness. Definitely has a profound impact on the people around us, brighter coloured clothing. And I've seen that firsthand in Egypt. I was walking around a lot of time with a friend, and normally the little girls and the boys that wanted a bit of change would go straight to her, and as soon as I put this t-shirt on, they immediately went all straight to me. So it can be expensive, of course, but still it makes you feel good. So yeah, be mindful of the kind of colours that you wear. And that's of course a big one, money. I mean, it's driving our world. We live in a monetary economy still. Difficult to get away from it, but if it's our primary motivation, it can get in the way of synchronicities. And in fact, you might end up getting money if you go after synchronicities, because if you're working or exploring in areas that are close to your soul's purpose, then the things tend to start flowing into your life that you need. But if we are only focused on the money, we might be blocking our own development. And one of the things my earliest client from California said to me, and it was, if you're getting an opportunity that comes into your life, something that perhaps scares you a bit if you were to take it, but you feel that it's a good thing to do, if you did turn that opportunity down, you might not ever have that opportunity come around again, or it might delay your progress. So even if something perhaps is a bit scary, before we turn these things down, we should give it a good thorough thinking about. And if it's possible to follow our hearts, then I would certainly recommend people to do that. And this is, I think, no way that we can argue really. Consciousness is changing around the planet, and predominantly due to the internet. 150 years ago, if we wanted to communicate with people in Australia, perhaps we were collaborating on a scientific project, it's going to take a very long time for a message to get to Australia and then them to send the reply. I mean, we're probably talking months. But now I can post on Facebook and have a reply from Australia in 2 seconds. So our ability to collaborate with like-minded people around the planet is absolutely incredible. And so this is speeding up consciousness, because I might be collaborating on a talk or something with someone in Australia, say, they give me an idea and then I can share it here. I mean, the transfer of information is amazing. So we are here at a pivotal time. The tools that we have, and of course we're seeing it with groups like Avast and these online petitions, and they are having a measurable effect. I've signed the online petitions, and then we see the headlines on the BBC that Avast have stopped things happening that are detrimental to our planet. So the kind of things that they're doing, the trailblazing, we are all capable of taking this power into our own hands and joining with like-minded people, collaboration. What's in our heart? Why did we come here? What's our contribution? Because at some point on the spiritual path, it isn't good enough to help yourself. It's like, wow, the world really is a magical place. I'm starting to see the magic again, like through the childlike innocence. And I missed it for a long time, but it's something that means a lot to me. So if I could try and share that with other people again to awaken it, that's a true blessing. And we want to all go along for the ride. I mean, we're all connected. That was what I was talking about in there, that we are all connected. I saw it when I was over the other side, when I had the group out of body experience in Egypt. It's not just a nice idea. We are all intimately connected and down here for a purpose. Some of our brothers and sisters are just acting from unconscious behaviour, very root chakra-based greed and things. But for people here on the sort of spiritual development or personal growth, we do have the tools to move beyond the way that they're behaving, and in fact it is, I think, is our responsibility to show them the error of their ways, because they're still very sleepy a lot of the time. And this is so fear-based consciousness, which is a general problem. I can't go here because something might happen. I mean, we spend a lot of time worrying about things that might happen. I read recently, it's normally the things that you didn't worry about that hit you out of left field, and they're the things you should have really worried about. So again, yoga can help with that. Don't spend too much time in the future. That's one sort of human trait. We're worrying about things in the future, predominantly that aren't going to happen, or we're worrying about things that we could have done better in the past, but generally there's very little we can do about past things. So it's important to be present, here, present with you today, and looking at a lot of smiling faces and a few bemused ones. But it's good to be here nonetheless. And I've certainly learnt about heart-based consciousness, I would say from Egypt to these other sites, and also the circle of people I surround myself with. It does make a big difference on our state of mind. When I've still got a few friends that are kind of constantly worrying, or they like to be there to talk to me about their problems, but there's a kind of healthy level where it gets to what's called an energy vampire, where they're just kind of sucking our energy, and it can be very tiring. And I know previously, I mean, I've had those kind of encounters, and it's taken a few days or a week perhaps to recover my energy levels. So now I'm more of, okay, well, I'll stay in my heart, and perhaps I just need to listen, particularly if they've shown me that if I give them advice they don't listen to it anyway. I mean, what's the point in pouring my heart out? But we can listen, and if they start kind of getting really emotional, don't take it on board ourselves, because that's not healthy for us. More of just see this kind of stress that they're projecting flowing past us, and don't get too involved. And then that's where these kind of tools like the sound bowl, the incense, and I've got essences, so we can purify our energy body after these kind of encounters. And like when I go into London, that's quite a nice sort of uplifting. It's quite an open space here, we're surrounded by nature, but going into the heart of a city like London, which is a really sort of dense consciousness, and the kind of worst case scenario is all crammed in on the tube. And I mean, I would say I was sort of above average sensitive, but I can cope with that. In a place like this, I can kind of see my aura expanded, and I can be more open and sharing. But if I'm going to go on the tube in London, I'm going to kind of pull my aura in, so I'm not dragging it through, because I kind of see it as this sphere around me. And then have a nice cleanse when I get home, and go about my business. And this is something, and the reason why it was good to do a kind of a practical demonstration, because just giving people intellectual information is not really the best way to learn. I've learned through my experiences at ancient sites and at yoga and things, something that's very personal to me. So a workshop where we can use the bowl and people can feel this sound resonance, which is the same as at the ancient sites, and just see how it feels, is I think a better contribution to me. Because if I'm just going to give you intellectual information, you might have this kind of information, and I've got to try and join the dots between the two. But how you're really going to join the dots, and how your reality changes perhaps to a more positive view, I think that's one of the things I've been working on myself. Yes, there's challenges here, but we can surround ourselves with good people, and we can take charge of things. And that was why are they relevant, really, is what that slide's asking us. Can ancient sites still help us today? And I definitely feel that part of my mission is to bring ancient sites into people's spiritual awareness. Not everybody needs to go to Egypt. I'm not a firm believer of that at all. Egypt calls people there. I'm booking them in all the time and finding out why they're travelling from around the world to Egypt. But where have you felt called to? Is it Peru? Do you come here because you want to go and see Stonehenge over the weekend? We've got amazing sites throughout the UK, But if there's somewhere that you felt called to, I would encourage you to get there when money or time allows, because it might just be that the energy of the area or the journey there helps you to gain an understanding in surprising and positive ways. But it's certainly fair to say that as we work on our sensitivity, which is what we're talking about with these kind of things, that we can then start to feel these subtle, finer forces at ancient sites that people, that most people are not aware of, because they're kind of densely rooted here, and also they've closed their mind off to the possibility that these things exist. My time travelling around the world, I'm definitely happy with the idea that there are strong energies, there's palpable atmospheres, and you can compare places in nature. I love being by the sea or mountains or walking the forest, and you can certainly, I've been working on going around some older forests recently, and there is a kind of collective consciousness, you could say, of the forest if it's been there for quite a while, and it is something that you can very subtly feel, in a similar way that you can very subtly feel kind of mass consciousness of flocks of birds or animals, but you need to be in a very still place to become aware of these things. So that was what I've kind of termed the energetic callings, where we feel called to help our spiritual involvement, because subconsciously or unconsciously we know what's best for us. That's why we don't need to listen too much to people standing at the front, because you already know all the answers. But a little reminder now and again doesn't normally hurt me. And then it was just really about the kind of experiences. I called it my soul's evolution. How these experiences I've shared with others around the world have made me aware that in fact reality is far stranger than we've been told. The kind of experiences that I've been having remind me that the people that are writing these things in Hollywood and making all of these TV shows, I mean, they must have been having these similar kind of experiences to me. I'm not the first person in human history, so it's rather than looking at the screen and thinking, well, they've got a vivid imagination. I mean, and then you start to sort of look at Gene Roddenberry, Star Trek creator, and I've kind of been moving around in circles that knew him, and these people are having these kind of experiences, but sometimes they don't let the public know the kind of root of their motivations. But I'm comfortable that reality is a lot stranger than most of us think, and probably than I still think, and it's out there for us to find when we're ready. So that was it. That was just the kind of the tool side. I didn't want to sort of drag that out too much, but at the same time I wanted to ask if anyone else would like to suggest other ideas. I mean, it's supposed to be a workshop, so it's sort of group collaboration. So now's the time to offer suggestions on what helps you in these areas. Have anyone got any offers?
After you.
The idea of moving into Aquarius from Pisces, you know, I think there was a lot of focus on individuals in the past, like kind of, you know, having one communion with the, you know, transcending themselves personally, whereas now it seems to be a group kind of activity which is kind of progressing us more quickly. It's not something which I've explored that much personally, but I'm kind of feeling that I'm gravitating towards, you know, groups of people, you know, to kind of, you know, for channeling or whatever it is, you know, to come up with a breath.
Well, I've given that thought, that subject, quite a lot of thought because of these group experiences that we've had in Egypt. I mean, there's one kind of theory that if we are the universe trying to understand itself, that we needed this period of separation from source and all act as individuals to learn that lesson. Maybe the experiment didn't go quite to plan, but because of the destruction of the environment, I mean, it's not sustainable. But I definitely feel it's a time to come back together where we can help each other, and as hopefully we can test with the power of group sound, with that work together we can raise our awareness and really reach these amazing places. And and the places that we've, I think, reached because of the male and female interaction as well. I mean, we could talk a lot about the male kind of consciousness that's pervaded this planet and is still raining terrible destruction on the environment. But the balance on all levels, the interaction between the men and the ladies and of ourselves needs to come back. So I think by using the sound and the female voice and the male voice and then kind of blending into this place of harmony, we can definitely make for some interesting feelings.
All of the things you said are really helpful.
One, I'll come to you next, sir. I've got one, you have to project me.
Yeah, okay, all of those things you said are really, not only really effective, but they're actually quite easy and cheap to access as well. It's a matter of attention. One of them that really struck me was the colour of what you're wearing and how it affects you and other people. And I moved on from there to realising that how we're communicating with each other sets up all sorts of dynamics, and I came to one or two conclusions which are working really well for me. One of which is that if you haven't got anything useful to say nothing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The person you're listening to, say you are in the position where you're just listening because you don't want to take any of it on. If they say, make sure they know you're paying attention, and if they say anything that's supportable, then support it. And the other thing about if you haven't got anything useful to say nothing, is that only put good stuff out there, because the stuff that's coming back is what you're putting out first. And those three things have proved to be really useful guides to me, because you can call on them instantly. You know, when unexpected things happen, they're good ground rules to add to all yours.
Well, I think I kind of had that point about because it's not only what we're watching and putting into our consciousness, it does play on our mind or our subconscious. So I mean, I can't watch horror films like that. I mean, and I used to like action films a lot, but they're so gory, and just seeing this kind of maiming of each other. I mean, is that really the world we want to be living in? No, I don't want to see that kind of stuff. I want the opposite to that. And yeah, certainly what we say, which comes, I mean, one of the subjects I could have discussed was how yoga and stress and anger, there's an interaction. So my yoga teacher normally says that we carry a lot of stress and anger in this part of the body, in the liver and kidney. And probably people in the audience, if you get stressed, you start feeling this tightness here. So some of the yoga postures are designed to kind of squeeze this area of the body, because there is a connection with the energy that's contained in this stress and anger, and how we can work on our meridian system, the energy body system. And so I used to be a very angry person. That's what I would have called myself as a young man, and so angry when I was at my school days that it used to scare me. And this was something that seemed to be in the family, and I thought, oh, well, maybe that's just passed down, and I just became an angry person because of my my parents. But it wasn't until I started yoga and I started to see this anger that used to bubble out when somebody would be confrontational. All of a sudden I could just sort of bear witness to their anger as they came at me, and perhaps I did do something wrong, but instead of reacting, because I like, okay, you're being angry to me, so I will be angry in return, instead of that kind of old approach, all of a sudden I was able to sort of bear witness, understand, and then look at my own actions, because I'm not an angel. But if I've made a mistake, I can apologise and sort of diffuse the situation. And the first time that I ever did that was just seeing these two people that were very angry about something sort of inconsequential, and I kind of diffused the situation and we moved past it. I mean, that was a lot of power. I suddenly had got beyond this power that used to frighten me that was going to come out. And I haven't seen that Gary since I started yoga. I haven't got to that angry place anymore. And so the outbursts of people that I used to do, used to push people away, it's gone, because I see it as I've got this anger and stress out of my system. So if somebody thinks of themselves as an angry person, I would say that is a person carrying a lot of stress and anger, and they haven't been educated at school that they've got things that they can do to get this anger and stress out of their system. And that would have been one of the handiest things they could have ever taught me at school. And then they could have given me the tools. It's like, okay, well, if you're with these angry people that are projecting their stress and anger onto you, you need to have some kind of cleansing ritual afterwards. Otherwise you're going to be carrying their stuff around for the next week. But no, I didn't. I had to find that one out the hard way, but at least I could try and highlight it. So yeah, if that does ring a bell, forward bends, or anything that's kind of bending here, twists are very good, and inversions where you have your legs in the air, and if you've got, I mean, you have to be careful with your back, so it's a very personal thing, but you can just lie up against the wall with your legs in a kind of V shape or straight up, and just draining the blood out of the legs into the body. It kind of refreshes the blood, and that's very relaxing as well. So all of these things are worth looking into. And there was a gentleman in the orange.
Gentleman in the orange?
Oh, yeah. When you mentioned sort of colour therapy and chakras, essential oils for all the come in dark bottles have got a colour, and you can, I use them for, you know, treating the chakra that's concerned.
Yes, well, I've got quite a few friends that work with the different oils and things, and we definitely found them to be very good on our travels in Egypt and other countries, which are a bit hard on the constitution sometimes. So yeah, essential oils and essences and things I definitely recommend people looking into if they're drawn in that direction. Anybody else with thoughts or contributions?
What did you think when you discovered the link between Jesus of Nazareth and Osiris, doing so much sort of born on the 25th, son of a virgin, and there's about 25 or some other religions or isms that are the same sort of thing, they've all got similarities with Jesus?
Well, you see in Egypt, I think the majority of the birth of where Christianity's come from, we see a lot of the depictions, and of course Egypt, we're talking 2,000-3,000 years older than Christianity, and they were there quite early, and it developed in that part of the world, possibly with connections here to Glastonbury. I mean, there seems to be a connection with Egypt and Ireland and England, so these things have transitioned. But yes, yeah, I mean, Christianity, the more I kind of looked into it, they do seem to have kind of assimilated a lot of these ideas, and one researcher I saw kind of put it well was that as the Romans conquered different peoples, they would assimilate their sort of spiritual or religious practices, so it didn't alienate the populations that they were invading and taking over. You could still celebrate your festival, but it would be under a different name, and that was a good way of integrating cultures into the Roman Empire.
It all links back to sun worship anyway, sort of the son of God, Ra, the sun. They're all the same religion that keeps popping up.
Well, one of the clients I represent is Gregory Sams, that some of you have probably seen, wrote the book Son of God, S-U-N, who talks about the consciousness of the sun, because the period of Akhenaten, which a lot of people may have heard of, where he was kind of bringing it into the forefront, this sun worship, but it was the divine light, it's the light of life. Everything that we're eating has been nourished by the light from the sun, whether it's a vegetable or an animal, and we're then assimilating that, and of course we feel so much happier in the sun. So if we're talking about it in terms of consciousness as he does, then there is consciousness in the sun and in our planet, and it might be something we're not aware of on a daily basis, but think about how small we are. Could we perceive something with a consciousness as great as the sun from our little perspective? Might be arrogant to think we could.
That's the ego though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It manifests within us, isn't it?
Well, we like to think we know it all. Was there an arm coming up over here somewhere?
I was talking about yoga and practices like that. Made me think of the freer aspect of movement. So dance practice, not learning specific steps, but just moving. Any energy that is causing pain is stuck energy, and just bringing it into movement, particularly through different rhythms, like the practice of 5 rhythms. I don't know if anyone knows this practice, but it just takes you through flowing rhythms, chaotic rhythms, so anything you're denying in yourself, you're encouraged to bring out and clear it, and it's just really empowering, really.
So is that your kind of way of just letting go and being in with music and in this kind of still
and
space?
Again, there's no equipment really needed, it's just movement, as simple as moving or singing, you know?
Well, I mean, that is part of the reason to bring the drum, because I'm not a musician or anything trained like that. But time at these sites, I think it's given me kind of more awareness of what's in my heart, because we are creators, all of us, and if we tell ourselves, oh, I'm not a musician, I can't, then we won't. But if we just give it our shot, our best shot, quite often we might surprise ourselves. I know I've surprised myself. And then if we get into this space that we're talking about, where it's just coming out and we're not consciously thinking about it, it's definitely an amazing feeling and feels great. So yeah, it's important that we all find the ways to help ourselves. I mean, that's why there's so many options out there. But there's some things that can have a real tangible effect, and that's kind of what I've been trying to integrate. But I think that was a good suggestion. Thank you for sharing.
One of the things that I wanted to add about the sound is one of my revelations is the universe and the universe. So we all sing together. And one of the things that kind of fell on my path at the moment is this: the Rainbow Warrior prophecy is we all sing our songs and pray our prayers and do our ceremonies. I was like, wow, we don't know any of our songs. So, and I think my revelation is we've got to kind of make our own. So, I mean, how would you feel about how we'd elaborate on that, or where would be our starting point to kind of make our own sacred songs, as it were?
Well, I think there's two sides to that. My research is more of going down the use of the vowel sounds, which is what we use in sort of yoga, Kundalini yoga, the oms and the ahs and the oohs, which is also something that the Druids use today. I know when we've been chanting at Stonehenge, they're there's sort of IOU. Is that right? What they use?
Arwen.
Well, I think we did I and O and ooh, that kind of recitation, which is very similar. So there's power in those sounds, and of course it's the intention that we can set before using it.
It's definitely a there is a trance dance to 5 rhythms. It's almost like it's in chanting, where you kind of put yourself in this trance state, and the ums and the oohs are very vibrational. But there's also the kind of like party aspect, where it's the everybody comes. Everybody knows when you're in at an event or whatever, when the music comes on, you can't help but to dance. I think that's kind of like where we need to, in this celebration idea, rather than this boring kind of I'm too spiritual to have a good time.
Oh yeah, I'm not subscribed to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be down here and have some fun. And from my experience, the universe isn't particularly serious. It's got a good sense of humour, so I don't know why we need to be trying dull about it. And but I liked your idea about creating our own songs, because certainly creative people, and if it comes out of the heart and it's shared and it felt good to us today, for example, somebody wanted to make a contribution, singing together is definitely a good thing, because certainly at this point, I mean, there's just been terrible things in the news, so just anything that we could do to send a bit of love or a bit of our hearts towards some of these people suffering around the world wouldn't be a bad idea today, because that's all any of us can really do, isn't it? We can contribute what we can, because if everybody does that, then a lot of these problems in the world are going to go away if we're all giving out something positive. So yeah, I would like our own songs. I was at a concert, Deva Premel in London, and that was the first time I'd been with sort of 600 or 700 people chanting together, and it was incredible. I mean, the effect of chanting with that amount of people lasted, I could feel it inside for 4 days. You sort of enter these very deep sleep points, and you wake up kind of feeling that you've been doing a lot of work, and there's these things happening inside you. So we might not be able to understand it through the rational mind. What is the connection between using this sound and how is it helping us? But if we listen to our intuition, or just become aware of how we feel, then we know on a deeper level that we are doing something good for ourselves.
Next question. On the topic of sound and frequency and vibration, you're saying about modern music, how much about this 432 hertz, this in nature's frequency?
Yeah, I've got a few friends researching it, and I do seem to be getting nudged in that direction to There's another one for me.
Music, say party music, the whole festival is all the music's switched to 432 hertz rather than
440, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because isn't the theory that they've changed their music in the last 50 years or something, and so the frequency that the music's at doesn't resonate in us as strongly?
Germans and I don't know connections through that way decided to.
But if we're just using the drum and chanting or something, I mean, we will find our natural rhythm. But so I don't know what the comparison, because I'm not going to try and get us chanting at an American music producer's tone. But yes, I will take that, as I definitely need to look a bit more into that.
What helped me lately was communicating with water.
Speak up.
Communicating with water and like water in everything, in plants, and trying to tap into the West information. It's scary and like getting closer to all the plants or anything in nature in a different level, just being still with the plants.
Are you telling me what you enjoy doing, or are you asking me to talk about it?
No, I'm saying like suggestions. So in that sense, communicating with water really.
So have you looked at the work of Dr. Emoto?
Yeah.
Yeah, when he does the kind of puts the intentions into the water. I mean, he's been kind of doing the rounds, and he's been with TruthJuice, and he's coming back, isn't he, soon? I think he's amazing.
Has anybody here done an experiment like that themselves? You know, is Emoto the only one that's done it? I mean, is it you know?
To freeze, because he freezes the things, doesn't he? So you can look at the crystal.
Okay.
That's his.
But I'd want to charge something myself and then look at it. You know, is anybody doing that?
A friend of mine has frozen water and done it with just putting water in a plastic cup and put it in the freezer, and he says the ones that he said negative things look more spiky. So without a microscope or anything, it just looks sharper and more spiky. So
just visually by eye.
Yeah, just by eye. So have a go and post it on the TruthJuice groups and share everybody's research. If somebody wants to take that, please feel free and put your pictures online. Or
Well, it's got. I mean, in my mind, it has a logic to it. If we're 70 to 80% water, doesn't it make sense to be consuming the best water we can, or treating this water with the utmost care, because that's what we are, basically, water flesh covered, you know. This is a container for water. The long way of looking at it. I mean, our piping system and things are not as advanced as they were using 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. They used to have this kind of positive spin going through the ancient pipes, which we can still see. So we're treating it terribly.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to this thing. There was some school kids did an experiment with just growing plants with water that's one lot have been blessed and the other lot have been cursed. And the plants with the blessed water just did brilliantly well by comparison. And it's such a simple experiment, and the kids did it. And
the plants with the cursed water were really quite muted.
Oh yeah,
weren't they? It wasn't just they didn't do well.
Is that something that's flying around on Facebook?
It was mentioned on Facebook.
Because I think me or one of my friends, we went and had a look on Hope Slayer or whatever, and it came up as, you know, so you have to go out and do these things ourselves.
Well, it's easy enough. Just get some plants with just any kind of water, and then get some the best ones I've seen, because I've seen some people do the stuff with that not with words, but they brought up one load of plants on, I think they just used tap water, and the other load of plants are brought up on water that had been microwaved, and it's absolutely bang to rights. You know, it'll work every time, I guarantee it.
Yeah, they did it with cell phones as well.
It's an easy experiment to do, isn't it?
Yeah, easy and cheap. The seeds are easy to come by.
Well, that is the next thing to do with the water, because I don't know if you were in my presentation when I was doing the water. How many people were in the presentation earlier? That should have been a question. Yeah, because I had. I want to be able to see it. I've got a slide on.
So in that slide that you showed, you said that the temperature of the water was actually rising.
That was what he said. Somebody's told me I need to look at that, but let's. only got the sound.
As far as the water goes, guys, John Byde's doing an amazing presentation later, or maybe he's going to go into the water on Sunday, but he answered a lot of questions for me about the vortexual energy of water, so he's well worth looking up.
Experiment A. How are you able to see on that? You have to get up really close because it's going to start bubbling. Here's the bubbles of the water just by it.
So you got water in the pot
Yeah,
and you're vibrating it.
and it happens very quickly, but it's so faint that anyone can see that at the back. I can't even see it here. No.
So
But it's
does it
something we could have demonstrated if we had. You just have to put 4 litres of water in the bowl. So this was what I discussed earlier when we were looking at these ancient sites in Egypt. They had huge crystal bowls, bigger than this table, and they had a hole in it, but you can only assume water was coming out. And so I came to the conclusion when I was walking across the desert looking at this site, which is closed to the public, that whatever they were doing with water, they'd realised that there was a connection between our life force and soul and the quality of the water in our bodies. And the higher the quality of the water in our bodies, the greater clarity of thought and the connection to our souls that we can have. And so they were uplifting the vibration with crystal and then drinking it. So that was how we ended up putting water in a crystal bowl to see what happens. And of course it immediately starts bubbling into the middle and jumping out of the pot after a minute. And so we drank it. That was the purpose of the exercise. It's like, well, if it's really true, let's see what happens. And this guy that was actually doing the bowl, who normally gets to sleep at like 11 or 12, he couldn't get to sleep till 4 or 5 in the morning because it was like we'd done something pretty strong. It was like, whoa! So yeah, it has a profound effect. So
does that actually add oxygen to the water?
Well, it must, because it's all bubbling, so it's jumping
out. It's like ozone in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that question?
Yeah. If you want to do an experiment, we've got some Glastonbury well water with us. If you want to try see if there's any difference between ordinary tap water and spring water.
We'd have to clean the bowl if we want to drink it though. Yeah. And you drink it at your own risk. I'm not a doctor. He takes your chances. I think that'll satisfy my insurance company.
Yeah, that's good enough for us.
Yeah, we're not comfortable. So you can do it in your own home if you feel the need. Self-responsibility. And I mean, it was a new title for the workshop, this idea of transitioning from our kind of everyday intellectual mind where we're trying to make sense of the world, because that's the real tool that we've educated, isn't it? But those of us that are trying to get into this kind of ritual, intuitional space, I've started to look at how you transition from the intellectual mind to the intuition, because it's not like you can just turn off the rational mind and then turn your intuition on. There is a process, and this is where ancient ritual is as relevant as it today as it was back then. So we need to have our modern process, and again this ties into what we've been talking about. What works for you? I mean, if you can get into that space and this kind of greater connection, it is truly life-changing. So we need to look at the kind of practices that we're employing and try different things to try and get into this place of the stillness. And sound is definitely a very powerful effect, because later on, anyone that wants to, we come up and we will feel the sound vibration coming off of this bowl, and that vibration you can feel coming through the body. And this bowl's tuned to the 3rd chakra, so quite often if you were sitting around it, you would feel this whole area of your body vibrating. And sound healing is capable of getting into our physical body and kind of disturbing this stuff that we hold on to, and then you can kind of you can work with an intention, go to a sound healing. I want to get rid of something, whether it's an emotional connection to somebody that's unsettling or something that's disturbing you. You could work with an intention like that, or just open up to it and see what kind of flows through your rational mind, because there might be a few things coming up. And gong baths. How many people have been to a gong bath? Anyone care to say how they felt after a gong bath? Must be anything after it.
It washed all the chakras. It has all the notes. In the whole sound of the god.
And was it enjoyable?
Amazing, it's total healing.
Because normally when I'm at a gong bath, you kind of feel this vibration of the sound flowing over you. Sometimes I start to feel where I quite often have a sort of block here, it seems, with my yoga postures. I kind of feel all this energy moving and releasing, and you can get into this point of just being conscious, but also very close to sleep. So it's just this really deep sense of relaxation, which has many benefits. And so I'd recommend anyone that hasn't tried that to go to a gong bath, and they're very easy to find around England and a lot of the Western world, or crystal bowl healings. I mean, I'm no expert with these. I've got one bowl. I've got this last year, because normally I'm toning at the ancient sites and using these kind of ancient places.
I have a question. This is the crystal bowl, but what about with Tibetan singing bowls? Could you treat water?
Yes. Yeah, I think there's a video on YouTube of them doing something similar. That is probably one. I mean, I'm very drawn to Tibet. That's my kind of main spiritual pilgrimage of my life. I think I'd like to do the pilgrimage to Mount Kailash, because I mean, if you look at the planet, it's almost like Tibet and northern India has been the remaining library of this kind of information. They do still do levitations and things out there using sound. We lost it in Egypt. They burnt the Great Library. The Spanish burnt it out of existence in South America, so we kind of lost most. I mean, there's small pieces of information in the hands of the indigenous, but in the mass consciousness of the world we've lost a lot. So we do have to look at I think what's in Tibet and northern India, and that's certainly what I'm doing, combining these kind of spiritual practices with these ancient sites around the world, and it's helped them come alive. So yes, they're good, those bowls as well.
You spoke about being sensitive to energies, especially when you're in places like London. You said about coming home and cleansing. How do you go about doing that?
Well, the Palo Santo or sage is the easiest way. You know, the white sage you can buy. Because the purpose of that is, you know, you use it for shamanic ceremony to cleanse the body first. Even just a bath, I think. I mean, there's things in our energy field that we're not aware of, but water, I mean, that's the practice they used to do when you go into the Egyptian temples. You would go into the sacred lake and bathe and cleanse this stuff off. So there is effects that we're not consciously aware of, most of us. So yeah, a nice bath or shower, sage, Palo Santo, whatever incense. I personally like the bowl. It's a very direct thing that we can all feel. So any of those practices that resonate with you, I would recommend.
You know the gong baths and the crystal bowl healing, like the way the water bubbles in the bowl, is that is it sort of like a form of cymatics?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Sort of like the way all like
you can, if you get a certain pitch. I mean, I've seen shapes forming in there, but of course it's under constant change. So if you kind of get into the space, you can see all of these shapes forming. So it's very interesting to watch, but normally as I'm the one doing the bowl, I'm kind of having to look at my hand or just keep an eye on it, so it's difficult to focus in there. But if I don't know how much. What time was I supposed to finish?
It's finishing about 1 o'clock, but you did start about 10 minutes late, so.
Does that mean I get 10 minutes longer?
You can,
unless it's really hungry people.
Yeah, the hungriest will move first, is my point.
Well, I think we're getting to the kind of practical implementation time now.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of intellectual side. What I would have liked to do, I think we've got my drum player, just give us what you got, and we get kind of just to sort of relax us and enjoy the sound of the drum, and then I'll do the bowl, and then as people sort of come up and you can feel the vibration when I do the bowl later if you want to, and then if we want to put water in it and see what happens, if we've got enough, we can do that. Deep breaths are good. So anyone can feel free to come up and just feel the sound comes out kind of like that.
Yeah.
Perfect going.
Think so. Lunchtime.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. So it is lunchtime now, and 2:30 we've got Dave Murphy coming in here talking about telepathy and the complete human, and Gary Biltcliffe will be talking about the legacy of the Etruscans and the Pulaski. So plenty of variety after lunch. We've got a whole hour and a half for a bit of this.